Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're tuning in. This is our kind of midway point of the conference playoffs edition of Backyard Buckets, brought to you by Backyard Sports. We got the whole crew this week. Ryan, I know you're disappointed, right?
I am, yeah. Can't say anything nice about Orlando today.
Yeah, we got to change our tune, right? Bentley, how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be back. I've missed some shows. I apologize for that, but it happens. But I'm excited to be here back with the boys.
Yeah, buddy. We're excited to have you back. Well, I am at least.
Well, that's what matters. As long as you're excited.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll backtrack just a little bit to round one. Last week we talked about a few series that had come to completion, and then we had a pretty exciting game 7 in LA. So we'll talk Nugs Clips first. I think, Ryan and I talked a little bit last week, and I'm going to go to Bentley first on this one because we talked about how competitive this series was, how pretty evenly matched these teams felt. It was a little bit of a clash of styles with Clippers coming in, having been the best team on defense in the league down the stretch, and the Nuggets having, best player in the world facilitating for the folks around him. So, Bentley, want to get your thoughts on that series? What are your takeaways from it before we pass the buck over here to round 2? Because obviously Nuggets win in Game 7 against the Clippers, and it felt like for a competitive series. I know I said a good game, but if you're a Nuggets fan, right? But it was a competitive series, but in Game 7 it felt like the Nuggets kind of got out early, frustrated the Clips, and the Clips kind of shut it down.
Yeah, I was after that Game 7.
Yeah.
And after Game 1 against the Thunder, I was ready to come out and eat a little bit of crow because I had talked extensively about how the ownership group, Josh Kroenke, just kind of refused to put a winning team around Nikola Jokic. And boy, did they prove me wrong in the first round, right? The Clippers have been playing like the second best team in the league, maybe, second best team in the West for sure for like the last 6 weeks of the season. And they kind of laid an egg in Game 7, right? It's kind of what we've come to expect from James Harden. Betting on James Harden in a Game 7 situation, not what you want to do. He's a guy that performs very well, and he has done so in a lot of playoff games. It's just when elimination games come around, he seems to wilt away. Not to bring up any bad memories for our good friend Ryan here, but we've seen it in Philly, we've seen it in Houston. His best elimination game, just kind of out of the top of my head, was the game he played with one hamstring in Brooklyn when it was him and Kevin Durant trying to drag that corpse of a roster to an NBA Eastern Conference Finals. But Nikola Jokic came out and proved by not even having the most stellar Game 7, but having a phenomenal series, right? Why he just is the best basketball player in the world, and it's really bar none. I don't know that there's an argument for another guy right now. He's the best to do it for the last 5 years, half decade probably. And it's just a treat to get to watch him play basketball, But that series, like, Michael Porter Jr. gutting it out, wearing a fucking middle linebacker shoulder brace on his non-shooting soldier, running around out there, playing well, like not just shooting the ball a ton, but playing well on the defensive side, moving on offense, setting off-ball screens, like the things that you expect from a guy you give a max rookie extension to. Finally doing those things, it's it's wonderful to see from him. Aaron Gordon playing lights out, hitting big shots down the stretch. It's awesome, and Jokic is the engine that drives all of that. We got a really good Jamal Murray game during that series, and then the Clippers just kind of laid an egg, like I said, in Game 7. It's unfortunate because they got a healthy Kawhi and a healthy James for the entire series, but they couldn't get it done when it mattered.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it when Michael Porter Jr. is engaged on the defensive end, it can be a real big contributing factor because he's not a guy you expect a lot of that from. I go back to what I always talked about with Carmelo Anthony. The knock on him was that he wasn't a good defender. His best years, he was a willing defender, and if they get a willing defender out of Michael Porter Jr., I think that helps them a lot, especially in a series against OKC, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, where they just have so many guys, right? They just have so many guys that you can't have guys taking plays off on the defensive end. So him playing through a bit of an injury and contributing on the other end of the floor, we know what he can do if he gets hot shooting the ball. But if he's contributing on the other end, on the defensive end, that's going to be a big help. Ryan, I saved you last for kind of two reasons. One, because we hadn't heard from Bentley on this series last week, but also because you are a Rockets fan. You were a big James Harden fan. You are still a big proponent of James Harden. I want to get your thoughts on that, right? That it's another Game 7 that he has struggled in, and he has had, I believe he's only had 2 Game 7s in his career in double digits. I may be a little off on that, but I know I'm not very far off on that with that stat. But he's also had single digits in a handful of Game 7s for a guy who was the primary scorer for the Rockets for a long time, a guy who is number 2 here on this Clippers team. You can't have that, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on that and talk to me about this Game 7. Any additional thoughts you have on that game?
It did surprise me. I think I came on the last week and I said the Clippers would win the last 2 games of the series, and I felt pretty good after Game 6 because I thought they were by far the better team in Game 6. But I give all the credit to Denver in Game 7. And that seemed to almost carry over into Game 1 of the next series a little bit, that momentum. Not as much after Game 2, but at least for Game 1. The play, the intensity, and then not just being from Jokic. But as far as Harden, I mean, he's past the time where he can take games over scoring-wise, right? He's a low 20-point scorer, generally speaking, at this point in his career. Like, he's got 30 in him every now and then, but he's a consistent 20 guy at this point. Did he underperform in this game? Yes. Do I agree with the narrative that he's like a playoff choke artist? No. He's had great playoff games as well. He just has had to face some rough ones. The hard part about the playoffs, and this is more philosophical, it doesn't have anything to do with James Harden, is there's so few playoff series and games in most people's careers. It is such a small sample size that it's hard to be like, yep, that's who that guy is. Like, I know James has probably over a year's worth of like games at this point, like another season and a half, season and a half. But still, like, it is difficult to say that Game 7s are where you fall apart, or like those types of things. Like, it's a mental thing, so that makes it tough. Do I wish he did better in Game 7s? Yes. But he also, in the famous 27 missed threes, like, I don't blame that on him. Like, the team missed 27 threes, right? Like, if James Harden's,
I want to put a pin in that exact statement right there. 27 missed 3-pointers, doesn't blame it on the player. Okay. That's all. So go ahead. That'll come up later. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't blame it on the player for a variety of reasons, but at least not one individual player. Yeah, I will fight to uphold James Harden's legacy as much as I can. I think as sports fans, we are natural reactionaries. We're not great about contextualizing. Even with some context, it's not great, to be fair. But I think we have to, find a better way to think about his career rather than just he's a choker. Because I don't really believe in that. Like, as a whole, like, almost every metric throughout sports, baseball has this, football has this. Guys play roughly the same in the playoffs and in the regular season. If you look at people's batting averages from regular season to playoffs, if you give them enough playoff games, they have roughly the same batting average and same on base percentage, right? There's very few people who are like, I'm a 300 hitter, now I'm a 180 hitter. Like it just doesn't exist, right?
Yankees fans would disagree. Aaron Judge exists.
Yeah, Clayton Kershaw fans would also disagree.
Yeah, again, give them enough games. Like generally, there's obviously outliers, but I don't even fully believe in the outliers a lot of the time. So yeah, I will defend his legacy if I have to. Someone has to, apparently, because he gets too much hate. We're talking about a top 50 guy all time, and the only stain on his record, really.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get a lot of dissent from myself. You won't, and I don't think you'll get a lot of dissent from Bentley on the totality of his career, right? I just think that there is enough empirical evidence to say something happens in Game 7 of playoff series with James Harden, whatever that may be. It might just be a bunch of coincidental freak occurrences that he just had bad games in those games, but there is something there. But I agree with you, right? Like. And I expected you to defend his legacy because of, you're a fan for one, and two, it's an easy legacy to defend when you look at it from the zoomed out 10,000 foot view of his career. Bentley, go ahead, bud. I know you got something pinned over there.
Yeah, James Harden, phenomenal player, top 50 guy. Like I'm not here to disparage James Harden, the basketball player. He's averaging 22. Basically 7 and 5.5 in 26 Elam games in his career. It's not as though he is bad, right? Like the averages kind of bear themselves out. It just feels that in the biggest moments, like in the Game 7s, is where he really struggles, That's going to be the takeaway that I have from his career. I'm going to think back on him fondly as a wonderful basketball player, extremely talented. For 3 years, he was an entire NBA team's offense by himself. It was a rotating cast of guys. He played without a center for an entire season and dragged that team to the playoffs in Houston. They were they won 60 games, right? With playing PJ Tucker at the center. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting here, Ryan sitting here. None of us are here saying that James Harden is a bad basketball player. He's phenomenal. It just in the elimination games, the Game 7s specifically, when you need him to step up, it's like, but where is it? I don't understand where it is. You can look and be like, oh, his stats are fine. He had 13 assists in this Game 7, but like you just have to do more. If you're going to be one of the greats, you have to do more in these games.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can all agree on that aspect of it.
He has played in 7 Game 7s in his entire career. We're talking an extremely small sample size. And now, most people do not have a lot of Game 7s just because there's not a lot of Game 7s, period. But 7 games total. It's just incredibly small. Now, elimination games is a larger number, obviously, because it's wins and losses in elimination games, right?
Yeah.
You have a little bit more data there, but I just want to say very small data set. It is not good numbers. I'm not defending the numbers. I'm just saying it is extremely small. Like who has a lot? Like LeBron, I think is like the only guy who has like 2 seasons of playoff basketball in his career. And even that is like, not a huge number.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he's averaging 30, not even 36% from the floor in Game 7s.
Yeah.
No, 100%. But he's also 22, 6, and 5.
In that 27 missed threes game where they set the record for consecutive misses, I mean, he missed 11. So he had a fair share of the misses.
So
yeah, he was also fouled multiple times. I mean, it was some terrible calls in that game, and he was undercut on shots. If you watch that, yeah. I have never seen someone just be allowed to be bullied that on their jump shot so much as he is in the playoffs. I mean, he is. They stopped calling the game the same way in the playoffs. Steph Curry hasn't happened to him, but James during his peak had more negative refereeing for his jump shot than I see of anybody. Kobe, you looked at Kobe wrong and he would get calls.
Yeah.
And James will get Klay Thompson like bullied him and hit him in the waist when he was shooting, hit him in the legs when he was shooting. It's like, nope, that's clean because this is the playoffs. Like, it's not clean.
It's true, but we all know the whistle is different in the playoffs. Like,
No, I agree.
Doesn't get as many free throws. Jalen Brunson doesn't get as many free throws. LeBron doesn't take as many free throws. Doncic doesn't. Like, it happens to all the stars, right? But here's my.
Which I also think is wrong.
Well, yeah, you should call. Well, I don't think they should call as many fouls as they do in the regular season. So I think they should officiate the regular season more like they officiate the postseason. But that's just me. I think I don't love the way they
SGA would average 8 points a game if that were true.
Well, I don't know about that. But.
I'm being hyperbolic.
Yeah.
However,
here's my James Harden stat. Right, so we have 7 career game 7s in James Harden's career. He is averaging 40.5 minutes per game and 19.3 points per game. And this is a guy who I said was an entire NBA franchise's whole offense for 3 years in a row. That's not doing enough in Game 7.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think holistically is unfair to him. Just as like one of those is in Oklahoma City. One of those is in Philadelphia. One is most recent, and then one is in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's probably his last in his peak. Yeah. He has only 4 Game 7s in his peak. Now those 4 Game 7s are not good either, but like we're talking about 4 Game 7s in an entire career peak. It's very small number. I go out and I have a bad 4 games every now and then too. I mean, it just happens.
All right, well, let's shift gears here. I'll go over to the Eastern Conference here because we had the Knicks and Pistons were finishing up like as we were doing the show last week, and the Knicks ended up closing out the Pistons in 6. We all talked about this in the group chat that, you know, we thought the series was a very important series for the Pistons, even though they didn't win. They got experience in the playoffs. They got experience in a hostile environment, the Garden. It's a mecca. It's kind of a revival of the early 90s, right, with the Pistons and Knicks, and how often late 80s, early 90s, how often, you know, for people of a certain age that they played in the playoffs. And that series was kind of officiated that way. We talked about that a little bit last week, where it felt like in the first round, some of the games were getting a little out of hand with some of the officiating. Some of the stuff they were letting go, essentially. However, Ryan, I'm going to go to you first because you've been the Cade Cunningham truther throughout the time we've done this show. I've been the hater. He had a very, very good season. He played this year, finally, played like the number 1 overall pick that he was. It has been a health thing, but it's also been, you know, even when he's been healthy in the past, he's not been that guy. This year, he really put it all together. They got a good core around him. Asar Thompson is a great addition there because he can really lock down defensively and let Cade focus on the offensive end, not having to defend, you know, ball handlers. Toby played a very good playoff series here, but they've got some good pieces around Cade Cunningham. So I'm going to go your way first because you've been the guy in his corner the most of any of us. Not to say that Bentley's been in my corner of hating on him, but you've been the one that's been the most up front and basically, you know, be patient with Cade Cunningham, and it paid off this year.
Yeah, I mean, Bentley is known as a fence sitter. You know, never makes a choice. He just whoever he can make happy at any moment.
What they say about me.
He's like, please tell me your opinion so I can repeat it. Yeah, I think this was a great series. Sorry, that was mean. This was a great series for the Pistons. I think if you're a Pistons fan, you feel pretty good about it. I think this was a series where you wanted to see what your team looks like. You know you're not winning a championship this year. Would you love to beat the Knicks? Yeah, but you're probably not going past that point, right? Best case scenario is you sneak a win in the first series, right? Really, the goal of this was, what does this team look like under the lights? They look really good. This looked like a team that has a bright, 5-year future. I don't go past that point because contracts make things crazy very quickly. But a pretty bright near future.
They got a window for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're in almost every way, the Pistons should feel good, right? The Pistons should feel good about the core. Ivy doesn't play and you still look really good, right? Ivy is probably still a contributor on this team. Like athletically, I think he's very good. He's kind of the opposite of Cade in a lot of ways. They kind of counterbalance each other in the backcourt. I think Jalen Duren looked solid. Like even defensively looked okay. He still got work to do, but he looked solid. I think like Tobias Harris looked good. Asar Thompson might be the best perimeter defender in the league. I mean, you feel pretty good. Like from the core side, and also from if you feel like this team is a piece away, this offseason is probably a good time to be a piece away because there's so many guys that people are talking about. And what I'm not hearing is a lot, well, the Pistons could make a move for a guy. The Pistons have assets. Pistons have guys that could definitely move forward. Can they offer the most of anybody? No. But if there's 3 or 4 guys that are in the trade market, I think they will be in on a lot of those guys. You know, and Tobias Harris, I think increased his trade value a little bit as like a stopgap guy, right? Like you could send back in a trade for contracts and picks and add another guy. Yeah, I think you feel pretty good. The Knicks are obviously just a much better offense. They're much older, better, veteran team. They've been around. They're tough nosed, and Pistons took those punches and punched back. And I was really impressed with their mentality. Like I said, Asar Thompson's like hair on fire out there. Him and his brother both. I think Asar might be the better defender, at least perimeter wise. I think Amen is a better defensive playmaker, maybe like slightly, but I think Asar is a more solid perimeter defender. I like the team a lot. I think Cade is pushing into the superstar territory very quickly in the next year or two. Like I don't think he'll ever be a top 5 guy because I don't think he has the athleticism for it, but he might be a top 10 guy, like somewhere 10 to 6 very soon. As the Currys and the Butlers and these guys age out, right? LeBron ages out, like these guys that were normally in there. I think he's in the superstar 8 to 10 is usually what they say, the amount of superstars in the league. I think he could very easily push into that in the next 2 to 3 years when he's in his peak. And you got to feel good if you're the Pistons.
Yeah, for sure. And as the Knicks continue to pull off these upsets against the Celtics, like you might be looking at, you pushed an Eastern Conference Finals participant, maybe an Eastern Conference champion, right? You push them in the first round. So the farther the Knicks go, the better you as a fan and as an organization feel about it, right? If the Knicks make a run to an NBA Finals, you got to feel good about that, right? Because you played them tough. And you had them on the ropes in a couple of the games. If a bounce or two went the other way, you might be the one beating Boston on their own court right now. Bentley, talk to me about Knicks Pistons here and defend your honor from not being a fence sitter.
I was very high on Cade coming out of Oklahoma State. Like anybody who's watched the show for any amount of time knows that I'm a big college basketball fan. Gary and I do the college football show. Like I love college sports, right? That's what I'm most passionate about. So I was high on him coming out of college, and then he went to Detroit and mired in obscurity for 3 years. But now he's back, right? So I do like Cade. Brian, I know, is our premier Cade Glazer on the show, and that's fine. I'll let him have that title.
As the kids say.
Exactly. I'm not going to challenge him for that one. But I do like Cade. I agree with Ryan. He lacks a little bit of the desired athleticism to be like the guy in the league. But I think he has an opportunity to be like a 1A on a team that makes an NBA Finals. Whether he can win a championship being the man on a team is yet to be seen, right? Because the roster they have around him is not championship worthy. So maybe he ascends as the team ascends, if you will. But yeah, they were one bad call away from being in a Game 7 against this Knicks team. And in Game 7s, we just talked a bunch about Game 7s, right? You never know.
Yep.
Anything can happen. And maybe, like you said, Gary, we're watching this Pistons team play against the Boston. And except Now we're watching the Knicks. That no call against Hardaway in the corner was a crazy piece of work by those officials. I don't understand. Like, I just didn't understand that. I don't know how you don't call that. It's very clear and obvious. Like, not only did he hit him in the shooting motion, but he landed in the shooter's landing space. Like that. That's crazy. There was a call like that against Zaza Pachulia that literally changed like the course of the NBA, NBA history, where you hear Kawhi in Golden State, and it's like maybe Kawhi never leaves San Antonio. So for them not to make that call was baffling to me. I really, really did not understand that. But this Pistons team is super, like, the future is so bright. If you're a Detroit fan, you're like, man, I know that the University of Michigan is falling apart right now, and our coach is self-banning himself, and our president just left for Miami or Florida or whatever. But, like, Ben Johnson left the Lions, and Alvin Gentry went to the Jets, and everything else is falling apart around us. But we have Cade Cunningham and this fun Detroit team to look forward to for the next couple seasons. And I would have to go in to see what kind of like picks they're looking at, what their war chest looks like. But I tend to agree with Ryan on this one about them being in the trade market. I don't know if Toby is a guy you want to send out. You may have to just for salary, but the way he played, I would imagine they would try to keep it. I mean, if they really, really want to take like an aggressive step, maybe Duran's a guy you put in a deal because he's so young and doesn't really stretch the floor on offense, but he's pretty good defender and a really, really good rebounder. So maybe you try to just find like two pieces to replace that and bring in a superstar. I don't know what we can talk about the offseason stuff down the road, but I mean, going forward, you have to be excited if you're a Detroit Pistons fan. And boy, the last time any of us said that, yikes!
Chauncey Billups was still playing.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Knicks fan and is like not super immersed in NBA history, like doesn't really understand. And they were like, man, like what is happening to these Knicks on the road during the Detroit series? And I just said back, welcome to the Palace at Auburn Hills. Like, that is a fucking basketball city through and through, man. They love their Pistons there in Detroit.
Yep, for sure. All right, well, let's get to the last of the round one series that we didn't talk about last week. Rockets Warriors. Ryan, I'll delay your inevitable pain and go to Bentley first on this. Again, much like the Nuggets Clippers game 7, one team came out, kind of punched the other in the mouth, and it just kind of cascaded from there. I think the Warriors showed championship medal. They showed that they've still got talent on that roster, and you put it perfectly after the game in the chat. Like, where were you for the Buddy Hield game?
Yeah.
So talk to me about this series, man. They close out in pretty convincing fashion. I think we all agree a young, promising Houston Rockets roster, but the Warriors show they're still kind of big brother, I guess, in this scenario.
Yeah, the game started, and I was like, man, Steph not really doing anything. Like, maybe Houston gets this one. They slay the giant, if you will. The monkey gets taken off the back. They finally beat Golden State in the playoffs. And then it all kind of flipped in the second half. Steph figured out how to shoot again, I guess. And the Buddy Hield game, obviously, none of that happens if Steph is not on the court. I think we're going to see that tonight, actually, in the Minnesota game, because we were talking about this in the office, but that gravitational pull that Steph has, like, he moves off the ball better than probably anybody in the game, maybe his entire career, right? Maybe ever, the way that they set up that offense for him, running off double screens, pin downs, whatever, you name it, he runs off of it. And every time he comes off the screen, the defender who is guarding the screener hedges. Like every single time. There is not a single time that Steph comes off the screen and he's clean. It doesn't happen. And with him not being on the court now tonight, that's probably not going to be the case. But that, when he runs through the weave of traffic in the paint, everybody is watching him and nobody is watching the ball. And that's how you get the Buddy Hield game, where he's wide open on the other side of the court and it's shooting practice for him. And for as great of a defensive team as Houston was all year long, it's tough to defend an offense like that, right? That's why they won so many championships, because it was Clay instead of Buddy Hield, right? It was Kevin Durant instead of Kevon Looney. Like it just for years and years and years. But the one constant there is Steph Curry is the gravitational force on the basketball court, and I feel bad for Ryan because, like, man, such an exciting fucking team in Houston. You know, Amen, Fred, Uncle Jeff, Steven Adams. You know, the list goes on and on. Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason. And that Jalen Green guy, I guess we could talk about him scoring. We have 7 points in game 7. But Ryan so aptly pointed out, you only get a few number of career game 7s in your lifetime, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. But I think that Houston has an awesome core. They have a phenomenal coach. Ime is a guy. I know he coaches super hard, and like people say he's like, not that he's difficult to play for, but he's a tough coach. You know, the kind of guy that I think I would really enjoy playing for in the NBA. If I were 6'3", I would be there, but I'm not. But it, you know, Gary, you and I use this kind of phrase all the time when talking about college football programs. We say arrow up. I think the arrow is all the way up in Houston. They have a ton of flexibility. Their war chest is overflowing in Houston with assets and picks. I get that losing to Golden State sucks, but like I would not hang my head if I was a Houston player, front office fan, whatever. Like every single year, there's a young team in the playoffs that has to earn their battle scars. They have to climb the mountain. They fall back down. They have to reclimb the mountain again. And this is just kind of one of those like building blocks, I think, for the Houston organization. You get Amen the playoff experience. You get Şengün the playoff experience. You know, you get the Tari Easons in there and the guys, the Jabari Smiths, like the guys who need that experience, that they need to be tested in the heat of battle. You get that for them this year, and you build on that going forward, and then you have a dominant franchise potentially if all those guys flourish into the players that I think they can be.
Yeah, for sure. You take some lumps on the way up, but I agree with you. It's arrow up in Houston. It doesn't make it feel any better. It especially doesn't make it feel any better for Ryan with the fact that he is a admitted, open, thorough, unabashed hater of the Golden State Warriors. Talk to me, Ryan. Talk to me about this series, the game, and then talk to me a little bit about your Houston Rockets and what the future looks like.
I think Golden State finally figured out the zone that Houston was running. I think they finally kind of had a game plan for it that wasn't single adjustments after timeouts, because pretty much every other game coming out of the timeouts, they would have a set play that would kind of bust the zone, and then they would struggle after that to effectively do it. And they really figured out a way to do it. They obviously used Curry primarily as a decoy. Got a lot of open layups, open dunks. Draymond passing, out of the high post, and then obviously Buddy Hield hitting the shots he did, being left open a lot on the weak side as the zone's trying to recover. It sucks to lose, like as a Rockets fan, but I think it's same as Detroit, a little bit of a fact-finding mission, right? Houston's not winning the championship this year, even if they win that game, right? Like their cap was they get lucky and get to a Western Conference Finals, right? Like that was like the cap. Like they're not beating 3 Western Conference teams this year. There's just no way. They would have to get it very lucky to beat 2, and I thought they had to get lucky to beat 1 more than likely, just with their experience and the way they play. Like, and they didn't get lucky, right? They lose the no Jimmy Butler game. Like they had their chances, and they didn't get it done. As far as the future goes, I think you have to feel pretty good. Houston's got basically the second most assets in the league behind Oklahoma City, and Houston's got, arguably the more valuable individual assets as far as picks go. They got guys that didn't even play. They got guys like Reed Shepherd and Cam Whitmore, right? That you hope contribute something in the next year or two, right? On like rookie deals. You have a lot of options if you're the Rockets. You can go for a star, right? Giannis is the one everybody talks about. Like you could go there. You could go if Devin Booker says he wants to be available. Right. Well, we don't have their picks, but we have Phoenix's picks.
Or you have Phoenix's, that's right.
Which is even more valuable in my opinion, with how things are going. Yeah, I mean it's tough, but I think they have a lot of options. They kind of have figured out, I think, what the team looks like in the playoffs against a pretty good team. I could also see them not doing anything in the offseason and just like taking the guy that they take in the draft, and because they have Phoenix's first pick, and they just kind of hold serve and hope that Jalen Green develops internally a little bit, right? Gets a little bit better IQ, better ball handling, right? Like he's got things he's got to work on for sure. And they just run it back because they're so young. They're like, well, one of these guys will be a star, and then we'll just have like a surrounding like fringe all-star team around him, right? Şengün's already an all-star. If he doesn't develop anymore, you still got one. Amen Thompson looks like the best prospect on the team. He very well could turn out to be, a top 25 guy in the league at some point. Like I think he has that potential. If you get the outlier outcomes, that keeping the team together is probably good. Now maybe they don't feel comfortable with those outlier outcomes. Maybe they say, hey, we already got a guy we can get and we know is a star, and we go for him, right? But it's good to have those options. So I think they feel good going into the off season. It was a season where I did not expect them to be the 2 seed, let alone I think I had them in the play-in initially, is what I said. So great season. Of course, they're only like 3 games away from the play-in because it was the Western Conference, but it could, a bad bounce here and there. They could have been in the play-in, but great season, very bright future. I think the only thing that sucks is Oklahoma City's even younger and with even more assets, and they're already better. So that's the tough one, but gotta control what you have. So. I hope it'll be a fun rivalry.
Yeah. I know a couple of guys in this chat who cashed tickets on the over for the Rockets. So at least somebody had confidence in your Rockets.
That's why I don't gamble.
Not the Rockets fan, but
the true ball knowers in this room.
That's why I don't gamble.
Yeah.
One more thought I had on that Rocket series. Just a little bit of credit to Draymond Green, who played lights out for most of that series. He had the classic Draymond Green thing happen where he is moving his limbs and people just run into them, of no fault of his own, obviously. Technicals, flagrants, the full thing, the full Draymond experience. And then in Game 7, just lights out defensively. Houston, with all of the prospects that they have on the roster, they need a guy at the end of games that they can give the ball to and say we need a bucket, right? And Şengün is almost that guy. Like, he's either going to try to get a bucket or he's going to find somebody else to get a bucket type deal, like a Jokic light. But credit to Draymond for playing just out of this world defense. But Houston needs like that late game scorer. And I believe he currently is like 36 or 37 years old and lives in the Scottsdale area.
Yeah, Draymond was their best player in Game 7.
Yeah.
I know Buddy Hield had the big with 33 points, but Draymond I thought was far and away their best player. Shut down Şengün one-on-one. They were like, hey, we're fine with letting Şengün post up because Draymond will shut him down, and he did. He did a great job on him. I think he was 16, 6, and 5 in Game 7. Like, hit shots, passed the ball, rebounded. If Buddy Hield hit open looks, like, that's your job. Draymond was a legitimate like game changer, and also moved the defense and offense in productive ways. So Draymond was their best player in Game 7. As much as Draymond annoys the shit out of me. And I think the refs are too easy on him. I mean, even Doris Burke said it in Game 6. She was like, "It's crazy. After he gets a technical, he could just do whatever he wants."
Yeah.
But I'll give him his credit. He was great in Game 7. He was great all series, but Game 7 particularly was a masterclass defensively and his contributions offensively.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got our 4 semifinalists, conference semifinalists set, and our 4 matchups. We'll start in the East with the series that started first. Cleveland is hosting, or they've got home court against the Pacers. They're down 2-0. And we've talked a little bit about it in the chat in terms of like they need to get healthy. If they can get healthy fast enough, they can still win this series. I want to continue to remind everyone, like Indiana won this season series against Cleveland as well. So this isn't necessarily just kind of a fluke, flash in the pan. Indiana seems to match up in some way, right, with this Cleveland team that was super efficient on both ends of the floor, hyper efficient on defense throughout the season. But Indiana's had their number, and I know some people believe in it, some people don't. So I want to get each of your thoughts as you talk about it. We'll go to Ryan first in this scenario. Talk to me about what Indiana's done in terms of what they've been able to do to go up 2-0 on Cleveland, and then talk to me about whether or not you believe in the clutch gene that Tyrese Halliburton has.
Oh, that's interesting. I do want to say that him being voted the most overrated player by the players, I don't understand how that's even possible. I'm like, how he's not even rated that highly. Like, I'm confused. If someone was like,
because he made Team USA.
Yeah, he's one of the 15 best American players. Like,
I'm just telling you, that's why he was rated, or he was ranked as the most overrated player.
It was probably a reaction to Jason Tatum not playing, and Tyrese Halliburton took the wrath.
Yeah. Hallie made the team. He dresses like a fucking geography teacher and is not friendly to his opponents on the court. I mean, that's NBA guys don't like that. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it. Makes no sense. That should be an indictment on any former player that becomes a commentator. Sometimes being close to the game doesn't mean you know it that well. In an analytic way, I don't necessarily mean in playing the game, but
Sure.
Yeah, I think one of the keys that Indiana's done well is not play all of Cleveland's team. That's been an effective strategy to eliminate 3 of their opponents in Game 2, unintentionally. Some seem to suggest intentionally, but unintentionally getting rid of the second and third best player on the Cavs helps a lot. Cavs are very deep, but they're deep like they could lose Max Strus and be okay. They got 3 Max Struses on the team, and they only lose 10% capability. Darius Garland to Ty Jerome, as good as Ty Jerome is a big drop off. Evan Mobley to Sam Merrill or Strus to some extent, having to play in that position, is a big drop off in a couple different ways. So that helps. Obviously, bad execution by Cleveland at the end of the game in Game 2. I thought Donovan had a great game except for the last 45 seconds. Just some mental errors, and that just gets you in the playoffs. I mean, close. You go through these times where you can't make shots, and you can't make mental mistakes when you can't make shots. You cannot compound those issues. It's you can miss when you're up 20, and you might still pull it out because the game just happens naturally. You can't turn the ball over. You can't give up easy buckets. You can't not rebound. These are just things that you're going to lose every game you play when you don't do that in the fourth quarter, especially in the playoffs. And in Game 1, I think that was just Cleveland didn't show up. They weren't ready. They bullied their first round matchup. Indiana, I think, is a team that has a little bit of edge to them. I think they come engaged. I think Siakam and Halliburton are kind of the emotional leaders and are both pretty engaged guys in different ways. And I think the role players around them are tough. active guys. They got good, role players like Nimhard and Toppin, and obviously Miles Turner is, I think, is a tough matchup for Jared Allen to chase around. I think that has opened up the lane. Like there's a lot of things. I think it's a difficult defensive matchup for Cleveland. But yeah, I think great energy. I think they've come out. I think Halliburton's looked great. He looks like he's rounding back into some of the form we saw 2 years ago.
Before the injury.
Yeah, he hasn't reached that level yet, but it's not far off. I still expect Cleveland, if they're healthy, to win the series. If they have their guys, I still expect them. It might have to go to 7, but I expect them to win the series. But all it takes is one bad Cleveland night, even if they're healthy, and Indiana's got to win one game basically, because they're going to win that game basically off the bad shooting. So they got their backs to the wall, but Indiana's not a slouch, just like last year. I think we shouldn't be surprised because they basically did something very similar last year. And arguably are better this year. So
yeah, I mean, you talk about what last year, right? They let a couple of games get away against the Celtics, or they might have knocked the eventual champions off. So do you or do you not believe in the clutch gene?
No. I think it's pretty proven that it does.
You don't think 7 game sevens is enough games either?
I don't. No. How many at bats is enough at bats to give an analysis of a player? Usually 400, right?
1.
Well, there are times where 1 is enough. I will say that is true. Usually not in the majors, though. Usually like in Little League. Like that kid cannot swing the bat.
You should stay home.
Yeah, exactly. 400 at bats is what they say, right? That's usually like, okay, 400. You can get like a rough analysis.
Yeah, but you can't
of a player.
You can't separate postseason and regular season in one sense and not the other, right? You can't. It's whatever. We're gonna agree to disagree.
I just don't think it exists. Like every study done on it is basically like, yeah, their percentages are roughly the same, like within the margin of error. Happens like look at Kobe Bryant's like game-winning shots. It's basically his career average. Maybe and then well, yeah, agreed, but. But who, like, if you were to ask people our age, who's the most clutch player of all time? It's him or Michael, is who they'll say.
Carmelo Anthony.
Okay. If you ask the person from upstate New York,
if you ask the person who knows about the best percentage in NBA history,
if you talk to someone who loves the University of Syracuse, but like generally, those are the two you'll hear the most, right? Those guys shot their career averages, like in what we consider clutch time. What clutch is, and I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but what clutch is exactly what happens when I say the 70s is the best era of music. Do you know why the 70s is the best era of music? Because I only listen to the good stuff from the 70s. I don't listen to the shitty stuff they made because they don't play it. I don't go on Spotify and go, let me listen to the bad stuff from that era. I go, hey, what's the best stuff you did in this 10-year period? When you watch Michael Jordan play, what do you get? You don't get, oh, he missed all these shots. You get game winner, game winner, game winner, game winner. You don't get all the ones he misses. You don't get Kobe's that he misses. You get the one where he's triple teamed and he's taking the fadeaway baseline shot. Crazy shot that he made, but like you don't get all the misses. It is revisionist history. That's why we believe in the clutch gene.
Do you know whose clutch time misses highlight reel is the shortest? Tyrese Halliburton, because it's one shot. One shot.
Yeah. I mean,
he doesn't shoot his career percentage in clutch time. He shoots 90%.
Hey,
anyway.
Don't ever take another shot, and you win the statistic. If you just never shoot again,
don't do it again. Just don't do it.
It's the pinch hitter who has he comes in and wins the World Series and never ever makes it back, and you're like, that guy's the most clutch hitter I've ever seen. It's like he never got another chance.
All right, Bentley, talk to me about what Indiana's done here. Talk to me about the series going forward, and then whether you believe in the clutch gene.
Before I do that, I had another question for Ryan here. Ryan, do you believe in momentum in sports?
As an abstract concept, yes.
That's not what I asked. I said,
Like-
do you believe in momentum?
You called Bentley a fence sitter earlier.
That's not fence sitting. I'm saying as an abstract concept, yes. Like saying I can quantify momentum. No, I don't think that's something you could easily quantify. But I do believe there's like a positive element of momentum where you feel good about yourself, and that leads to confidence. Now you can say the inverse of happens in clutch situations where people lose confidence in themselves because of the situation, but I don't think that happens, is my point.
Okay,
Professional athletes are supremely confident to begin with.
It's true. It's true. Since you don't believe in the clutch gene, do you believe in the anti-clutch gene? Like, do you think that?
Okay, what's
do you think
that?
that, do you
What
think
is
that
that?
there are people who are worse in clutch moments than their career averages?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, there are people that happens, but if you get to enough numbers, generally, it's usually in small sample sizes. Is my point. And also, I could define clutch any way I want to. What was clutch when I was a kid? Clutch was I make the last shot. That's what I heard. It's like that guy's clutch, right? He hits the game winner. He goes up with bases loaded. He hits the double, clears the bases, and wins the game. Hits the home grand slam, right? That was clutch. Now it's like, oh, 2 minutes left, 5-point game. But you hit possession first, possession arrow your way, and I'm like, what are we defining? Like that's the most arbitrary definition I've ever heard in my life. Why isn't the first 2 minutes the most clutch time if you go up 30-0?
Yeah.
Like I just don't
The
get
clutch award is dumb. I don't like the clutch award.
Yeah, there's no way to define it in a way that like says something worthwhile, is my point.
They just pick the guy who scores the most at the end of games. Like that's
Yeah, which is just usage more than anything.
yeah. And they gave it to Brunson when Nikola Jokic exists. Like I don't just by him existing, he's the clutchest player on the court.
They're going to give SGA an MVP this year, despite Jokic existing.
Yeah. Okay. Pacers, Cleveland. I'm not going to do the obvious thing where I say Cleveland is injured. We all know that. Ryan talked about it. Gary, you opened the segment with that. So I'll kind of go a different direction here and say that Rick Carlisle is one of the most underrated coaches probably in NBA history, right? He won one of the most difficult championships. I understand that he had Dirk Nowitzki on his team, but Dirk was towards the end of his prime and was Sean Marion the second best player on that team? Or Jason Terry, maybe? I don't know. Regardless.
Jet was pretty awesome during that run.
Yeah. But here he is all over again. He went to an Eastern Conference Finals last year with a very young team whose best player was, 3 years in the league. And he's poised to go back to another Eastern Conference Finals for a second year in a row. And I think if they get to a series against the Knicks, like that's kind of a toss-up, right? Like anything can happen there. The Knicks have more like high-end talent, but Rick Carlisle is more willing to go into his bench and play. He has more players on his roster, than that he trusts than do the Knicks. That being said, they still have to get through Cleveland, and I agree with Ryan here that if Cleveland gets their guys back, I do expect them to win this series. The depth for this team is not on like the high side of their talent. The depth is on the 7, 8, 9 guys on the bench, right?
They have 5 number 6s.
Yeah, exactly, right? Which is a great place to be, so long as your 1 through 3 are playing,
4 healthy,
right?
Yeah.
Or your 2 through 4, whatever, however you want to place Jared Allen, DeAndre Hunter on this roster. I think if they had either Mobley or Darius Garland, they probably win that game the other night. The wasted Donovan Mitchell game. You know, he scores 48, shoots 17 free throws. Like he did everything in his power to win that game outside of the last, 40 seconds or whatever it was. How you allow Indiana to get an offensive rebound on a missed free throw is really, really baffling to me. Just run 3 big men out there. All you have to do is get a rebound and, then it turns into a foul thing. But Send out your best rebounding crew and tell everyone to find a body, right? That's pee-wee level stuff. The shot goes up, you find a body and you back into him. Like that's basic fundamentals of basketball. So poor execution by Cleveland down the stretch. A wonderful, wonderful Donovan Mitchell game. That was super fun to watch. It was reminiscent of his days in Utah when he used to have to carry the offense for them in the playoffs. So that was enjoyable to watch. But man, Halliburton, this team, you know, they felt robbed almost of that Eastern Conference Finals last year, and I know that left a sour taste in their mouth. So credit to them for getting back to the spot, winning 2 on the road, regardless of injury status. Like, that's never easy to go on the road and win in the playoffs, you know. Halliburton is playing out of his mind. Siakam has played well. He's not a world beater right now by any stretch, but like the other guys on that roster are picking up the slack where Siakam is not playing at a superstar level. I want to see Cleveland get healthy because I think this would be a super exciting series if we can see a healthy Cleveland. But Gary, you said it today earlier. I don't know if they're going to be healthy in time to make this a competitive series, right? I expect Cleveland, even if this is the same, like if they roll out the same lineup, I still expect them to win at least 2 games in this series. If they get healthy, it could go to 7. But if they don't get their guys back, I think we're looking at Indiana being in the Eastern Conference Finals the second year in a row.
I think the big thing is game 3, right? If they can take game 3, you buy yourself another couple days to get healthy, whoever's available for game 3. And you said it, I think you said it right? If they have either Mobley or Garland in game 2, I think they win that game. If they can get one of them for game 3, you might be able to go get one in Indiana. And then if you can continue to get guys back and get healthy, you can start to rattle off. You start to rattle off 2 in a row. You take 2 of 3. You got the last couple games you can play at home. Sure, right? You got a shot, but got to get it to game 7 though. That was my big point. Is like I think I take Cleveland 10 times out of 10 in a game 7 if they're healthy, right? But they've got to get healthy in time to get to that game 7, and that's what I worry about.
Can I add some historical facts about Rick Carlisle that I think are important? Rick Carlisle was on the 2000 Pacers team, not as a player, but as a coach. He was the assistant coach to Larry Bird. That team went to the NBA Finals. Larry Bird will even tell you Rick Carlisle was the offensive and defensive coach.
Yeah.
So that's really almost another finals appearance for Rick Carlisle.
Yeah.
He also has 2 other interesting, I think, basketball stories. He was a member of the 1986 Celtics, so he won a championship on some people say the greatest team of all time. He played for the 86 Celtics, deep on the bench, but did play. Also, a UVA grad, went to the University of Virginia, and played with Ralph Sampson, arguably the greatest Virginian of all time, and was also
George Washington.
I still exist, dude. Like
better than George Washington for sure.
But he chopped down that cherry tree.
But Rick Carlisle was on the UVA team that lost to Chaminade, which is considered the greatest upset in college basketball history. So 3 interesting facts about Rick Carlisle.
Until UVA got upset by Maryland, Baltimore County later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think Chaminade was worse. Chaminade, they were the equivalent of a D3 school.
Yeah.
And they were there to play the University of Hawaii, and Hawaii was like, we can't be there. And Chaminade was like, we'll play you. And they just showed up and beat them, which is crazy.
Yeah.
With Ralph Sampson.
Yeah.
Maybe the greatest college basketball player of all time, Ralph Sampson.
I think second.
Conversation.
But yeah, he's up
there. Yeah, he's up there.
All right.
Virginia guy, 2 up, 2 down, baby.
Yeah, right.
Just throwing that out there.
Let's stay in the Eastern Conference, where we also have a road team that has won 2 games to start the series, probably in more impactful and maybe embarrassing fashion for the Celtics than the Cavs, because you can make the excuse the Cavs were unhealthy in game 2, despite the fact that they really kind of gave up the ghost down the stretch in game 2. Boston has had 20-point leads in both of these games. And I made the joke, tongue-in-cheek, kind of, in the group chat last night when Boston went up 20 that said, are they going to blow this thing again? And Bentley said, no shot. And I mean it sincerely when I say I was mostly joking, mostly tongue in cheek, just throwing some shit out there because they had blown the big lead the day before. And I shit you not, in the next 5 fucking minutes, it was cut to 4. And I was like, I just kept sending ellipses in the chat, like, what are we doing here? And then lo and behold, Knicks take the lead with about a minute left, and then Boston gets the lead back on a Tatum dunk. They go down. Brunson hits the clutch shot, and then Mikal Bridges justifies the 84 first-round picks that the Knicks gave up for him for a second consecutive game. I'm going to go to you first, though, Bentley. Talk to me about this series. Talk to me about the Knicks, and talk to me about the Celtics, who have missed, it's like 76, I think, total threes between the two games. It's I just keep calling it 80 because it's a fucking embarrassing number either way. But I do want to point something out. So we talked a little bit in the office today, and I know the story has kind of been like mix in a 2, right? Boston actually shot more 2-point field goals in game 2 than they did 3-point field goals, which I didn't know because it looks so like they just settle so often for threes because it's what they've built this team to do. I was surprised to hear that they shot like 53 2-pointers and like 40 something 3-pointers in that game. But it looks so inefficient when they're going bad, and we all know the StatCast and analytics era. Two missed threes and a made 3 is better than 2 made 2s in a couple. It's just analytically speaking, it's more efficient to shoot 3s. But talk to me about this Boston team, and can they get up off the mat headed to the Garden, the other Garden?
I'll try to keep this brief because I could go on bashing any Boston sports franchise for the rest of my life, potentially. They've shot 100 3-pointers in 2 games, and they've made 25 of them.
Yep.
Now, Ryan made a comment earlier where he talked about Houston missing 27 3-pointers in game 7. He said, I don't blame James Harden. Totally fair. I agree. That's not James Harden's fault. That's a coaching issue, right? Now, it's different in that Houston scenario because that was a 1-game sample size. What we're looking at here is a 2-game sample size where you've missed 75 3-pointers in 2 games. We talk about players a lot on this podcast because it's the NBA. You talk about superstars. That's what you do. So Jason Tatum has been the topic of conversation multiple times. And I remember last year in the playoffs making a specific comment about him, and it wasn't an original thought, or it wasn't an original thought to me, but it wasn't the first time I've said it, right? Watching him his freshman year at Duke take over the Barclays Center and win an ACC tournament championship basically by himself, comes into the NBA, is incredible as a rookie, incredible as a sophomore in the NBA, and then like the game shifted as a whole, like basketball shifted. It had already been moving, but like it became more dramatic, right? His individual game shifted, and it's reached an apex at this point, right? He was an incredible, incredible scorer of the basketball from the mid-range when he was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, right? He does not do that anymore. That is not a part of Jason Tatum's game anymore. He does not rip through, take 2 power dribbles, and pull up from 19 feet and bury a shot. He doesn't, cut across the lane and pull up from 13 feet and bury a 2-point shot. He is supremely talented at doing that because he's 6'10" and very strong and very fast and can shoot over just about any single player on the court who's guarding him. What he would prefer to do is have Mitchell Robinson guard him 28 feet, do a 1-dribble crossover, take 2 steps back, and line up a 31-footer and fucking miss it. Rather than beating a 7-foot guy off, who, by the way, Mitchell Robinson playing very good defense in this series. Just putting that one out there. This is not a knock against Mitchell Robinson. This is a knock against Jason Tatum and the rest of the Boston Celtics, right? rather than going around the 7-footer, who Jason Tatum is supremely talented, so I know for a fact that he can get around a center 35 feet from the basket. Why not just do that and go to the rim and fucking get fouled, make the layup, do whatever you got to do? I just don't. The shooting 100 3-pointers in 2 games makes no sense to me when they're not going in. I get that that's their offense and that's what they've built it around, and they've done it for 82 games of the regular season, and they won a bunch of games, and they won a championship last year. But I'm not knocking any of that. What I'm doing is I'm knocking the lack of coaching changes that they are not like implementing in these games, right? If you want to take game 1 out of the equation where they missed a historic number, they missed 45 3-pointers in game 1, that's fine. When you go into game 2 and it's still not working, you have to change something up. You just have to. You have Tatum. You have, right? You have Tatum, and I'm harping on him a lot because he's the best player they have. You have Brown. You have Drew Holiday. You have Derek White. They're getting switches where Brunson is playing defense on the primary ball handler. Make that Kristaps Porzingis. You can get the switch anytime you want. Just dump him in the post. It makes no sense to me what Boston is doing on the offensive end. They're playing good defense too. The Knicks are just making a bunch of really, really tough shots. Ryan's going to talk about it, I'm sure, but OG Anunoby has been playing out of his mind. He's been doing everything the Knicks have needed him to do. They won a game last night where Jalen Brunson scored 18 points. I never in a million years would I expected that to happen. Credit to the Knicks for playing super hard and staying in these games, but like these are 2 games that were lost by the Boston Celtics and not 2 games that were won by the New York Knicks.
Yeah, no, I agree in a lot of ways. I think when one team loses a game, though, there is a lot to be said about how the other team reacted to that opportunity that the door was left open. The Celtics, when you're up 20, they just don't have the killer instinct. And we talk a lot about, Tatum and kind of whether, that's going to be the face of the NBA. And we talked a lot about why he doesn't want to be the face of the NBA and how he's kind of a quiet demeanor guy. He's a silent superstar. But there's also the fact that, like, he's not a fucking killer. He's just not dribbling himself into a triple team in the corner. We talked, Jordan and Kobe and those guys, like, they wanted the ball. They were going to get to their spot and get their shot. They weren't going to fucking dribble into the corner into a triple team and allow Mikal Bridges to make the play that he made. Great defender, great play, very good instincts. But the Knicks let him dribble himself into that situation. You saw how hard they were hedging against his right. They were chasing him into help on defense. And God damn it, he fucking obliged on that last second play where Bridges takes the ball from him. That's not the killer that they need. The killer that they need is the guy who went by Mitchell Robinson and fucking tomahawked it the play before. But he didn't follow that up with the same thing, the same mentality, the same instinct after Brunson, who is a fucking killer, went down, got his shot at the elbow, tough shot over a great defender. That's not what Jason Tatum is. And if they're not hitting threes and the Boston Celtics need a late bucket, I might be deferring to fucking Derek White. Honestly, in that scenario, I don't know what he's so talented, but he just withers when it comes down to moments where he's got to step up and take charge and be the guy. And they were just so much better than everybody last year. And that's why they won that title last year. And we talked a little bit about the Pacers kind of being unlucky in that series. If that bounces a different way, will Tatum be able to pick them up and win that series? We're going to fucking find out if he's going to be able to do it against the Knicks. All right, Ryan, I'll get off my soapbox. Your turn, bud.
Yeah, that's my job. Can't believe you're appropriating my culture. Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about this with y'all, and I am not as in opposition to the threes, and I think that's probably because I've watched a lot of Mike D'Antoni basketball. And that's the way you do things, especially late in his head coaching career. I think your best argument against it, which I think you made pretty well, is that late in games when you're up big, do you take the easy stuff because you don't need the threes in that situation? You already have the lead. you're up 22s probably get you there with a couple minutes left. Like you don't even, and you probably get better looks from three when doing that. Like I think that argument is pretty solid. I don't think the argument of they should not take threes is worthwhile to me. I think there's get them in the flow of the offense, I think is kind of what you're saying, and I agree with that, right? I think it's more of a Kristaps issue. Like I said today to y'all, I think Kristaps not being 100% clearly, like not playing as much as he usually does. I think that is hurting them a lot. I think he unlocks a lot of things for them as on both ends of the floor, as an outlet and also as a play finisher, as a defensive guy off the weak side. I think that was a big loss for them. I think he matches up well with the Knicks, but obviously not having him there hurts, right? He's good on Cat, I think. So is Al Horford, but Al Horford's getting old. But yeah, I think it's a fun experiment what Boston is doing. I think it is a good experiment for the league. It's a good, and I mean the league, not just the teams, but the league front office to see, is this what we want basketball to look like? And I think we've been asking that question for many years. Boston's like, let's do it to the extreme, and we'll find out if they can put up with it. So I think that's interesting. Yeah. And I would like to see Mazzulla get a little funky with it. I would like to see him actually open up a little bit. I think I told you all that today, that he's actually a creative coach. He tries a lot of different things. A lot of stuff doesn't work, but he tries different things. And I would like to see him try some stuff that's a little different. And maybe that's a personnel change instead of a style change, but I think that might be valuable to what they're doing. So I'm not as much of a hater, but I don't love it either. So could be worse, I guess. But I would like to see Mazzulla open the playbook up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we'll move over to the Western Conference, where we'll save tonight's game. We'll save that series for last. So we'll start with Thunder Nuggets. As Ryan alluded to earlier when he was talking about the momentum with the Nuggets and how they played in Game 7, carrying over to what it seemed like it carried over to Game 1, maybe a little bit of time off for the Thunder as well. Nuggets steal Game 1 against OKC in OKC. And not to spoil it if you haven't seen yet, but first time in history, all 4 road teams won the opening game of the series in the conference semifinals. But essentially, first time in NBA history that all the road teams won on the road to open the series. In this round, it's 4-0 though, and before OKC got off the ground, it was 6-0 because, as we talked about already, Cleveland and Boston both dropped both games on their home floors. Crazy. 6-0 to start the conference semifinals by road teams. However, OKC gets off the mat and pummels Denver last night. At one point, I thought this thing was going to be like a 50, 60 point loss. Hammered them. And it was almost like those two teams weren't from the same planet. Ryan, I'll go your way first. Talk to me about OKC. Talk to me about Denver. How does Denver win this series? What is OKC? I mean, how do they win this series? Does OKC just need to not fall apart like they did in Game 1?
Yeah, that helps. I would say. I think that's a good start. Don't fall apart. It's usually number one. In the Raiders, they jump up and they hit the sign. Mine just says "Don't fall apart," and they jump up every day before work. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
It doesn't always work, but man, I feel good for 2 minutes. Yeah, I think Oklahoma City has to play bad for them to lose the series. I kind of agree with that. I think the Nuggets need a lot from people not named Jokic. I think Oklahoma City's done a good job of actually bothering Jokic quite a bit, throwing different looks at him. And that's something we've talked about 50 times on this podcast. Is Oklahoma City has 5 defenders on the floor pretty much at all times, and can attack you from literally every angle with an athletic, lengthy defender, right? They can get you low, they can get you high, they can get in the passing lanes, they can shut down the other 4 guys and play you one-on-one, right? And it's just Jokic, even a guy with Jokic's superhuman processing powers, I think even that is too much, right? I just think that's too much. And unless you're getting like outlier Murray series and an outlier Aaron Gordon series and potentially an outlier like Porter series, I think you might need all 3 at the same time. That's unusual. Yeah, doesn't happen very often. So I think this is a 6-game series. I think Oklahoma City is young. I expect them to lose like game 1, where they just kind of, they don't show up mentally, and that's maybe the Nuggets' advantage, is that they hopefully have the mentality to sneak another game or 2 and push it to 7. Like, that's possible. But talent-wise, scheme-wise, I think Oklahoma City is clearly the better team, and I don't think it's particularly close. I think Oklahoma City is I think by far the best team left, period, not just in the West. And I thought they've been the best team all year. So I think the best team wins most of the time when you get down to this point. And it's not like we have best player in the world versus like 5th best player in the world with the best team. We got potentially like the 2nd best guy in the league and the 1st best guy in the same series. So, all the metrics that you normally would say, how do you win a series? Well, you have the best guy. It's like, well, those guys are actually pretty close to each other. Yeah. The other guy has just an incredible team around him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just, there's not a lot of analysis that says Nuggets pull this out. It's not impossible, but I think it's 10% or less probably.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, going back, we have talked about it a lot. Just start, move the ball, coaching, change things up. Ryan said be more, daring and experimental. Bentley, just take a 2, mix 1 in. But on the Nugs and Thunder, the one thing, the biggest difference I saw between game 1 and game 2, and we talk a lot about things tighten up in the playoffs, whistles get tighter. You could be a little more physical. You can get away with a little more contact here and there. I think that OKC, they pushed the envelope in game 2 and realized how far they can push it. If they are going to be allowed to be as physical as they were in that game, because they were inside the pocket against Jokic and Murray and Gordon, like everybody, they were just hands on them, full extension hands on them, grabbing jerseys, all of it. If they're going to be allowed to get away with that defense that is already great that they play is just going to be that much better. And it is going to be very, very difficult for Denver to find buckets if they're allowed to play like that. And I commend OKC for that, because that's something that they probably needed. Oop, bumped my camera. Jesus. Something they probably needed, though, was like a change of mentality going into the game. And they realized it's something that maybe we'll just get more physical on the defensive end and bother Jokic, because it is one of those things that, like, over the course of time, people have said you bump him around and move him around and make other people beat you, and they weren't able to beat him. If they're allowed to be that physical, though, this is going to be a 5 or 6 game series, because I just don't see a way that Denver is going to be able to overcome how good that defense is to begin with all the length, all the athleticism, the versatility that they have to be able to guard multiple positions with multiple players. And then if they're allowed to get that much in the hip pocket of Denver, this series is toast. They could win games 91-70 in this series. So anyway, onward to you, Bentley. Talk to us about Denver, OKC, and do you agree or disagree with Ryan that it's going to take more of a collapse from OKC in this series for Denver to win it, or is there a path that you see for Denver?
Well, if Oklahoma City is only going to score 91 points, I guess we're just playing one half of basketball.
Yeah, they scored 86, 87 last night in one half.
I think it was 91.
Was it 91? Did they get
I'm pretty
that high?
sure. It was a lot.
It was
whatever
long.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only way Denver wins the series is if Oklahoma City implodes.
Yeah.
They're too fast, they're too long, they're too talented, they're too young. Like
Too fast, too furious.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. They don't have friends, they have family. So as much as I hate to say that, right? Because I love Jokic, he's the best player in the world. He really, really cares. I know that there are a lot of jokes, and we've all made them, right? Does he even care about basketball? He only loves horses. If you watch these games and you see the sideline interactions and the way he's getting animated on the court, he fucking cares. He wants to win. He really, really does, and it means a lot to him, right? He's just that competitive of a person. So it sucks that he's completely outgunned and outmatched in this series. But I think if you were to go position by position, he's definitely the only starter on Denver that starts for Oklahoma City. And then it's like, okay,
how many
of the other four starters on Denver, how many of them are playing? Like they'll all play some minutes, right? Like Christian Brown feels like a good Thunder fit. Michael Porter Jr. doesn't play any defense, but his shooting probably would get him minutes alone. Like Aaron Gordon feels like a Thunder guy. Jamal Murray, sure, I guess. Like 3 years ago, Jamal Murray would definitely play, but this current Jamal Murray probably not. So it just is. It's really a bummer. I think Oklahoma City wins at 5. Like it's a gentleman's sweep at this point. I don't really see them. It would have to be a mental lapse, like Ryan said, a night where they just don't show up and Jokic comes out and is just a maestro on the court and takes full advantage of that situation. But I don't see that happening. I think we see them kind of roll through this series and move on to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish up here with the game that will be played tonight, Game 2. Warriors go in. They steal Game 1 on the road, as I mentioned. Undefeated road teams to start the second round here. Steph Curry, right before half, goes to the locker room early. He had hit a little bit of a runner in the lane, but pulled up lame. Hamstring strain. So they're going to be without him for about a week, if not a little more than that. Optimistic analysis says maybe he's back for Game 5. So Minnesota missed an opportunity in Game 1 with Steph Curry missing the second half. They were not able to close out. The Warriors played incredible defense. I think, Bentley, you were the one that really emphasized it. Like, Draymond was just a man on fire defensively in this series opener. He was also, Ryan said, played very well against Houston as well. He's going to have to be that and more. He's going to have to shoot well. He shot well in the second half of that game, especially when Steph Curry went out. Buddy Hield has to continue to make shots. But I think the most important thing is the piece that Steve Kerr was very upfront about between games. And he said, we're going to need the Jimmy Butler that carried a team to the NBA Finals. And I tend to agree with that assessment. That I think that is going to be, if Golden State is going to be 2-2 or optimally 3-1, right? When Steph Curry comes back in Game 5, if he comes back, Jimmy Butler is going to have to be Jimmy Buckets from his Heat days of carrying that team to an NBA Finals. So, Bentley, I'm going to go your way first. Talk to me a little bit about Game 1. Talk to me about the series and kind of how it progresses now that we've got one of the best players in the world missing some time here. And then I'm going to put both of y'all on the spot. I'll give my pick at the end, but give me your live pick for Game 2 since that kicks off in about 3 minutes.
Yeah. If Jimmy Butler plays like the Jimmy Butler we saw on those 2 finals runs, then Golden State has a chance to tread water until Steph comes back. Sans Steph Curry playing in the series, they have no chance to win. Because Anthony Edwards is not going to have another shooting night where he doesn't make a jump shot for the first 42 minutes of the basketball game. That's not going to happen. I'd be willing to stake lots and lots of hard-earned US dollars on that. He might have 40 tonight just because a little bit of, my bad, guys, hand up accountability. I should have played better.
I think Chris Finch went out on a limb too.
Yeah.
Like his comment after the game that just seemed like there was a light off. That's a strong statement about Captain America from this past Olympics. Essentially, that's a strong statement about your superstar.
Yeah. So I have the utmost confidence in Minnesota being able to close this out. I'd say 6 is probably as long as I think the series goes. Hamstrings.
Man,
we see it most of the time in football, like the lingering hamstring thing.
Guys lose seasons with just hamstrings that won't go away.
Yeah, and you feel bad. Yeah, right. You feel bad. Right? Ryan might not feel bad seeing Steph Curry come up with a hamstring, but Gary, you and I, the ball knowers, feel bad seeing Steph come up limp. It sucks. We've all said it a million times. One of the most fun guys to watch of the last 15 years, and to see him miss time in the playoffs is a real bummer. But that's not to take away from the level of defense that they play at in Minnesota. The team is a menace on the defensive end. Ant can face guard anybody. Jaden McDaniels can face guard anybody. And Gobert, obviously, on the back line protecting the rim. He's been the best to do it for 6-7 years now at this point, right? Just from the strictly center position. So it sucks for Golden State, but I think we're going to get to see the best team go through in this scenario, which is Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I'm excited to see, not to get ahead of myself, but I'm excited to see him think that he's the best player in the series, in Oklahoma City series. And when I say that, I mean, he thinks he's better than the entirety of the Oklahoma City Thunder organization combined. So that will be fun.
Yeah, he does not lack for confidence in himself.
Not at all. Not at all.
I do love his interviews where they've asked him about like other sports. And he's like, yeah, I would play center field, start in Major League Baseball. And like, I'd be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Like, all right, dude. I applaud the confidence for sure.
That one I kind of believe. The football one I kind of believe.
Yeah. Maybe.
He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. Like
He does. He could apparently he could throw too. I've seen a video where he does put one on a rope 40 yards or so. So all right, Ryan, talk to me. Warriors, T-Wolves here. Oh, Bentley, you didn't give me your pick for tonight.
Oh.
You got T-Wolves tonight then?
Yeah, I saw the line move to 11 about an hour and a half ago. I was confident laying 10. I still feel confident laying 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mission from the T-Wolves tonight. Ryan, talk to me. Series here, and then give me your live pick for the evening.
I first want to say, I've never hated a seemingly nice person so much as Steph Curry. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a nice enough guy, upstanding citizen. But I don't wish him to be hurt, but I don't like him. But series-wise, Golden State's not that good with Steph Curry. They're playing way above their head. I don't think it's sustainable over a long period of time, over a long series. Now, some might say, well, they just won a 7-game series. Well, now we're adding 7 games. We've got to do 7 more, right? Like potentially. I don't think it's a sustainable model to have only your 2 guys really be your scorers. They're going to need like a good game from Pods, a good game from Hield, basically a great game every night from Draymond Green to have a chance in the series. They're even going to need like a Kevon Looney game where he like gives them like 10 or something and rebounds well. I don't see that happening. Moses Moody I like, but like I'm not sure. He doesn't look great right now. He looks a little lost out there. I just don't think they have enough the drop off from their second best player or their third best player to their fourth is so big to me. And they have no size. They get bullied pretty easily. I think Minnesota's huge. I think they'll kind of bully them. I know how game one went, but I expect Minnesota to win this in 6 and to win tonight. I just don't think Golden State's that good. I think defensively they're very good. I think offensively they're not very good. And I think, they'll get a win off shutting guys down, but without Curry, I mean, there's no chance, in my opinion. I think they're less likely to beat Minnesota than the Nuggets are to beat Oklahoma City.
All right. Yeah. I tried to talk myself into being real cute here and saying like, oh, they're going to get the Ewing effect, right? When Patrick Ewing went down, they won like 15 of 20 or something over a stretch, and that was where the term came in, where a superstar goes down and everybody steps up and does their thing. I think we're going to get a motivated Ant tonight. I think Chris Finch going out on a limb and calling out his superstar in a very soft way, like he softened it with the language, but it was very direct and very pointed, exactly what he meant to say and how he meant it. He just didn't go out there and say like, Ant played like shit tonight, right? He said it in a very diplomatic way, but got his point across very succinctly and very well. And I think we're going to get a pissed off Ant because they lost. I think we're going to get a pissed off Ant because he played very poorly. And I think he's going to get the message from his coach. And I think that we're going to get one of those kind of quintessential superstar comes out, carries his team to a big win in game 2 to get the series back on the right track. We might get 40 or 45 out of Ant tonight. And we're going to even this thing up going to Golden State. I think the big thing Golden State has to hope for, honestly, is that they can trick Ant into settling for three-pointers a lot, even though he shot much better this year than he has in his career. If they can force him to be that guy, they might be able to. If you steal one of game 3 or 4, and you hope that Steph's back for game 5, and healthy, and maybe you can steal a game there. You get to a game 7, and all bets are off. That's kind of the path I think for Golden State if they're going to get this thing to a game 7 and win this series. I think I agree with both of you that I think it does end in 6. I think, just Minnesota's the better team. And I don't know if Golden State can win one without Steph, without having one of those games where you can kind of trick Anthony Edwards into beating himself and beating the team. I agree with you guys mostly. I think we're headed for a Minnesota OKC clash in the conference finals. And I think that's going to be fun because, as Bentley said, Anthony Edwards does wholeheartedly believe that he could play 1-on-12 against the Oklahoma City Thunder and still win.
He might do it.
He might.
So, stay back there. I got this.
Yeah, just I'll see you in the locker room after the game.
Yeah. Have my Gatorade ready.
All right. Well, any closing thoughts? Ryan, we'll go your way first.
Excited. Monday is the draft lottery.
Yeah.
One of my favorite times of the year. I do have a hypothetical about the draft that I wanted to ask. I'll ask both, but specifically for Bentley because I haven't bothered him enough today.
Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag? My answer is Cooper Flag.
It's actually a question about Cooper Flag. And so I heard it on a different
answer is still Cooper Flag.
The representative from Maine has the floor. I heard this on another podcast. I thought it was an interesting question. I'll ask it really, really quickly, but it said, excluding injuries, what is Cooper's 10% outcome? So if 100% is his peak, right, the best possible scenario, 10% is the 10% best version. So not pretty bad outcome, right? Like he lowballed as it's basically his floor. There's a little bit lower than that, but it's right above his floor. If you can tell me what you think that looks like, because I think it's an interesting thought experiment.
Barring injury, you said?
Yeah, injury is not fair because, I mean, that's like an obvious one.
Yeah, Greg
his,
Oden is the floor,
his back falls apart and he never plays again. Like that, obviously.
Wait, so you're asking 10, like what's 90% of his max potential?
No. What
10%.
is
Yeah.
what is 10% of his max potential?
Oh,
What's a bad
okay,
career
okay.
look like for
Oh,
Cooper
okay,
Flag?
okay. Sorry. Kevin Garnett?
A top 25 guy all time. Yep, that checks.
I gotta hold on. I gotta look this up real fast. I need a height comparison. Yeah, that'll work. So the guy that I'm thinking of averaged. Oh wait, was that a season? Hold on, a career. Career 5.8 points a game,
We are thinking of the exact same person.
3 rebounds.
I shit you not. We are
0.7
thinking of the
assists.
exact same person.
Would you like to say?
Matt Bonner.
Yep.
Really, Matt Bonner is his low end outcome. It's actually lower than I expected you to say.
I mean, 10% of.
Yeah, like
Yeah, but you got to think, how good is he right now? Though, is like you have to think about that. Is he already better than Matt Bonner right now?
that's fair.
10%,
Probably.
because we're saying no injury. We're just saying like he comes in as good as he is right now. He maybe just doesn't get any better. Like maybe that's the 10% outcome.
Is it? Well, I was gonna say like Trey Lyles, but he's probably already better than Trey Lyles.
That Trey Lyles is a good one. That's an interesting one. He's probably already a better shooter than Trey Lyles. My initial thought was Aaron Gordon. I think that might be too good of a player for that outcome. Like Aaron Gordon is probably a better player right now than Cooper Flag is.
Cooper's a better shooter than Aaron Gordon, though.
Yeah, but Aaron is better overall. Is my point. I was just thinking right today. He might not be in a year from now, but
I don't know that Aaron Gordon is better right now than Cooper Flag.
But if your floor is Aaron Gordon, that's a pretty good prospect. That's kind of my point. It might be a little high. That might be like his 20% outcome. But
what did Sam Vecini say?
It was not Sam Vecini.
Oh.
Though I do listen to a lot of Sam Vecini. It was not Sam Vecini. It was the No Ceilings podcast was talking about it. And I thought it was an interesting question because it's something we don't ever think about. We're always like, what's the ceiling? Like what's the best possible version? It's like, well, he's Kevin Garnett, or
that was going to be my 90% answer, by the way.
Oh, what's 100%? If that's your 90%,
I don't think we've seen.
there's no comparison. I mean, that might be true if 90% is Kevin Garnett. That might be true that there is not a current. You're just talking LeBron James, like at that point, like you're getting into that territory.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because like I need to see where he's going to play on the court in the NBA, right? Because we saw the second half of the season at Duke, he played so much of the point forward position. Is he going to do that in the NBA? I don't know. Is he going to play a lot more off the ball in the NBA than he did in college? I don't know. Like, it's a tough one to draw a comparison to without having seen him play NBA minutes. I don't know. Maybe his ceiling is like, are he and Paolo going to be the best two players in the NBA in like 5 years? I don't know. It's possible. I'm just saying it could be.
Listen, I'd love to go to Capital One and find out what his floor is.
Same.
100%. As would I think that'd be cool. I just think it's interesting to think about. I think it's something when we look at players like in the draft, we don't talk about very often. We just go, ooh, shiny new toy.
Always optimistic. You're always going to nail the pick. You're always going to meet the ceiling.
But I think it's quite a compliment that it's hard to think of for Cooper Flag. I think almost everybody else in the draft, you can kind of think of what is the bottom, like what's the floor look like pretty easily. A lot of them not in the NBA is the answer. Yeah, but like, it's tough. It's tough to even think about him because he might already be like a really good role player.
Yeah.
And his floor might just be a very good role player where his dribbling doesn't get any better, his shooting doesn't translate, his defense translates, and he like is a good finisher around the basket, right? Like that's like an elite defensive like guy who can finish around the basket. Like that's like the worst case scenario, which is still pretty good, like a high end role player.
See, is it Ron Artest? Is that his 10%?
Ron Artest was really good. Ron Artest was better than Aaron Gordon.
And it's just,
I think that's like his 30-40% outcome.
yeah.
Ron Harper.
Is it like
Minnesota?
is it Meta World Peace? How about that?
What about this one? Okay, I have another one that I thought about. Okay, what if it's Matisse Thybulle?
He's already better than Matisse Thybulle.
That might be true, but
he's already better than Matisse Thybulle ever was in the NBA.
I agree, but he would have if he doesn't develop, he would have a similar skill set to Matisse Thybulle. Is my point.
Matisse Thybulle couldn't throw the ball in the ocean if he was standing on the edge of a boat. Like,
yeah, he'd be better around the basket. I agree with that, but I just think that there is some similarities there for a really bad outcome that he could be like a Matisse Thybulle type guy. But we don't have to think about it all night, but something to think about for next time I ask. Because it's about to be draft season.
I think I would be more inclined to go with Dabo Cephalosha than Matisse Thybulle.
Okay, yeah. I don't think that's a bad one.
He's taller than Cephalosha, but
has some ball skills that are similar. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that as like almost like a 3-and-D guy, but like bigger.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Is he a less athletic Derrick Jones Jr.? Oh wait, hold on. I got
less vertically athletic, but still very athletic.
Yeah, exactly. Less vertically. Is PJ Washington too good to be a 10%?
Yeah, but it's probably not far off 25. He's like in the Aaron Gordon territory.
I mean, career 13, 6, and 2. Like,
yeah, elite role player.
Probably like a 25% comparison, maybe.
Just something to think about.
That is interesting, yeah.
And we should all think about this when we're watching the draft. What's the bad outcome? Because it happens a lot, and it's not fun.
Yeah, you miss so often.
Yeah, you get a lot of. I think but I do think it's a testament to his ability that we're like the worst player is still like a good rotation player.
Yeah.
I think it's a very safe pick with some good upside. I'll ask another one next week. Won't do it this week.
All right. Bentley, any closing thoughts from you?
We have some opening lines coming out of Vegas for week 1 of college football, so pretty locked in on that. Your Syracuse Orange getting 10.5 against Tennessee. My buddy said, Shane in our
I don't know who's going to play
league.
Quarterback for Syracuse. That's my biggest question right now. Who is going to play quarterback?
So Notre Dame in our Xbox league sent me a video. It was like a hype video for Lenore Sellers. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought the best quarterback was Arch Manning. Who's this guy? So we don't talk about Lenore Sellers around here. No, I'm just excited to watch Anthony Edwards tonight. I think it's going to be super. You said it, motivated Ant. I'm all in on that.
Yeah.
Well, they're up 13-0 to start the games.
And Ant just missed a layup. Okay.
All right. Well, hey, appreciate both of you being here tonight. Appreciate the activity in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of Backyard Buckets, brought to you by Backyard Sports. We